This is our cafe on tour again, Jan.
Yes.
We are at a very nice location called Sauna Dome. And I've never, ever thought that I would go to a sauna for an SAP event, or no, an IT-related event.
Yeah, it's the user conference Solace Connect.
Yeah.
By Solace, and for the folks that are not watching this stream but are just listening.
Yeah. Are you in your swimming pants?
Sauna, we're not naked.
You have your swimming pants.
I didn't bring my swimming pants in case I would have to go into the sauna. So this is without swimming pants, right?
This podcast is the naked truth. All about naked
Solace.
Yeah. So it is SAP. No, excuse me. It's the Solace Connect BeNeLux 2026. We are here at Nijmegen. They say it might be the oldest city of the Netherlands, but we come back to that later with one of our guests in today's podcast.
Let's check what the mayor says.
Yeah, that will be an interesting. And today is all about connect, share, and learn. And yeah, Solace brings a big group together: customers, partners, Solace people, Solace experts. It's an interesting event, and we were invited by Emil. Thank you, Emil.
Again, yeah, because of the good experiences in the past, of course. It's now the third time that we have the Solace Connect event. The first two editions in Amsterdam, now in Nijmegen, so change of atmosphere. But never change a winning team, so you are back again.
I understood that you're a resident of Nijmegen, so you're probably in charge of organizing this.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Why sauna?
Interesting here at the Solace Connect, and I think it's about real-time data for the Agentic enterprise. Welcome to Hanekefe, the Netherlands.
Hanekefe Nederland is your one-stop shop for all things SAP. Grab yourself a coffee or tea and join regulars Jan Penninkhof,
Goedemiddag,
and Tom van der Broek,
That's me,
with our guests as they chat about latest developments, innovations, events, or simply catch up. Let's head inside.
Welcome, Emil.
Thanks, Twan.
Welcome, Kenneth.
Thanks, Twan.
Welcome, Jan.
Hey Twan.
Hey.
Dus, Emil.
The burning question. The burning question.
Which question is burning it hardest? Why we're
Nijmegen.
here?
Why here? Why sauna?
There's several reasons for that. One is just cost, of course. Amsterdam is not the cheapest place to go to with a big group like this. And we expected again some growth in the number of visitors also. And we have a nice audience showing up. I think it's 100 plus, the prospects, the customers, the partners, the Solace team all together. So we want to find a nice event venue where we could host this. Also because I like I said, the change of atmosphere. It's good to do it at the Heineken. It was good to do it there twice at the Heineken experience. But I think it's also good. And actually, next, I'm looking at Kenneth now, who's sitting next to me and is coming from Belgium. Next year, we want to do it in Belgium. So we will be moving.
Yeah, well, it's a BeNeLux user conference, right? So 3 times in a row it's been in the Netherlands.
Actually, we have people from I think 7 or 8 countries today. So I posted on LinkedIn about that. So you can find I created a small map. But it's UK people, it's people from Germany, from France, from Belgium, Netherlands, nobody from Luxembourg this year, even from Lithuania and
Spain,
India.
Spain, I thought.
Yeah, also Spain. Yeah, true. Yeah, also Spain.
Yeah.
So everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
Not limited to BeNeLux only.
Yeah.
But I noticed that you had a very, very nice lineup of customers and also folks from Solace, of course, explaining about about how Solace technology is being used. Yeah. What's the most striking for you?
Well, I always prefer, of course, to hear the customers tell about what goes well and what also, even if there are some bumps on the road, part of their journey. So how did they get to select Solace? And usually that's not a technology choice, but it's part of a strategic choice, how they want to deal with data. If you look at what companies driving today, and hopefully, or probably also tomorrow for sure, is data is, and I've said it before today, but it's a reflection of your business processes. It's not our data, it's the company's data, and it's meaningful for them. And if you want to act on that data as soon as possible, then you can start thinking at least about event-driven architectures. And then it might make sense to also think about Solace or SAP AEM, advanced events, of course. And that's also what we heard today. To get back to your question, actually, Jan. The journey from companies like Airbus Helicopters, like Schwarz Group, the mother company of Lidl and Kaufland, and also again our own JDE, Douwe Egberts, on how they started working with Solace, how they discovered adding event-driven. It's not necessarily about replacing. Don't destroy what you have. That's also a funny thing. I think most of the companies that are customers for Solace exist already for at least 50 years, but a lot of them already for more than 150 years. So these companies, they stay relevant because they innovate. There's not a company that does the same as like 150 years ago. It's still about coffee with JDE, but the whole process has changed time and time again.
Yeah, so it's about innovation, and
Exactly.
and that's why you chose Nijmegen, because it's an innovation hub, right?
It's been more than 10 years ago, Twan, or approximately 10 years ago, that we did the Run Live truck at JDE. And then we were still talking about IoT. But nowadays, the key word is
Agents.
Agentic.
Sorry, dit ging kennen.
And that was Dutch.
Oh yeah.
So what is the intersect between Solace and Agentic AI?
Well, for me, it's quite clear what the intersect is between Solace and Agentic AI. One of the use cases that we always, one of the use cases that it always comes down to is, agents, you will not always run them from a text window, right? A chat window. You can do that, but sometimes agents also need to react to things that are happening in the business, and perhaps that has an outcome as well, and another agent needs to react to that as well. So this is where basically Solace or even Advanced Event Mesh comes in, into making sure that an organization is real time. So also when you start to add agents, they can also react to what's happening in the business.
The autonomous enterprise.
Exactly.
So it runs by itself.
Indeed.
To rule them all.
And overnight, things happening, and when you come back, you have your statement and your report ready.
Exactly.
Also, let's go into the customer case that you just mentioned. Also, Schwarz was on stage, and they are the IT party of the big retailers, Lidl and Kaufland. And they had some really interesting experience stories on stage. Unfortunately, he could not make it to the podcast. But we can talk a little bit about their case, right? Emil, maybe you can explain a little bit what they do?
Yeah. Schwarz is customer, I think now like 4 or 5 years, and they were already working with EDA for quite some time before that. Event-driven architecture is not new. Solace exists already like 25 years, and the whole idea of working event-driven is even older. At that time when they started with Solace, they already had some other technologies in-house, but they were no longer up to the task. Schwarz is the mother company of Lidl and Kaufland. It's more than 15,000 stores worldwide, and they had just issues to get all the data at the right place at the right time. So instead of, and a lot of broker solutions out there are good as a standalone broker, but they do not give you a platform. So one of the things, of course, with Solace, it's more than just a broker. You can put event brokers together in an event mesh. You have the event portal with it for the data governance and management. And also Schwarz, when they started with deploying the Solace brokers, they just, well, actually, the funny thing is what Andreas usually says when he does a speech, that in the end it was quite boring because it just worked. Well, I think that's a good way to summarize it, because that means that no matter the scale, because actually Schwarz deployed to 15,000 stores. Now there's more than 15,000 brokers running in a big global mesh. And it just works for them. So the guarantee that they can run their business.
You should put it on your shirt. Yeah. So this is the best argument to choose for Solace. It's a product that just works.
And at scale as well. I mean, I was baffled by the numbers that they actually showed as well. I'm not really sure if I can mention them. But
they were
things
huge,
like messages were in the billions. Usually we talk about millions. These messages that they were pushing over the lines were in the billions.
Yeah, exactly. Per day.
Terabytes per day.
Exactly. Per day. It's not per year, it's per day.
No, those numbers you usually hear like it's per month, and even then it's high for some companies. And it's all kind of data. It's product updates. Of course, a lot of supermarkets nowadays work with the electronic shelf labels. That means you have to push the data there. And the interesting thing, and that's also what was part later, or will be part later in the customer panel. how you can use also the topic taxonomy that is part of the platform to direct data to the right place. So you still have the publish once, but use at the right spot. Not only use multiple times, but use at the right spot, because every store, in fact, has its own access control to the data that they are entitled to use. So you can direct it from a central place, publish it once, and all the stores receive what they need.
But also like their own KPI, there's the self-set KPI that the information has to be so fast that before the customer leaves the store, it should already be in the app of the customer. And that's
if you talk about
how long,
the digital receipts.
if you have done your grocery shopping, how fast do you want to get out of the store?
That's for one thing. One of the other things that I really found flabbergasting is the fact that they had these POS systems with weighing scales, and that the weighing scales, they said they turned it into a target, that the weighing scale was supposed to recognize an object based on the weight.
A banana.
If you put a banana in there, it's supposed to say this is a banana and not an apple.
Yeah.
And they said we're going to use AI for that. So it needs, whatever you put in the weighing scale needs to go to a backend somewhere, to an AI backend. So for the assessment, right? Like, what is this object? And that happens with Solace as well. And for what we were talking about the receipts, right? Yeah. The receipts should be there before you leave the store. I don't want to wait seconds before the bloody thing recognizes that's the banana that I put in there. I want that to
you already know that it's a banana.
Yeah, I know that it's a banana, but the thing doesn't. But I want it to happen in milliseconds.
I totally agree.
That's
the real time.
They really have the customer in the store as the persona. They do not think about technology, but they do think, how can I make the life easier of the customer in the store?
The customer experience is key for them, and especially at this scale, you have no other options than to do it like this, because otherwise nobody will come back again. Of course, if you're waiting at the weighing scale, like you say, you do that once, but you will not do it twice. So.
Yeah, and the same for the shelf labels. That they are seeing that there's certain conditions, that they want to get rid of the apples, perishable goods. That as soon as they press a button, that the prices in all of their 1,500 stores,
15,000,
15,000 stores can be adjusted by just pressing a button.
But it
immediately in milliseconds.
But it means that not all those stores will, of course, receive the same price. So depending on the country, but even the region in the country, maybe even the weather conditions at a specific time in a country, specific stores will receive, based again on their subscriptions, the updates that are relevant for them.
And that's where we come in. Pricing conditions. Right, Twan?
Good old SD consultant.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Kenneth, what was the story that you will bring home now from today?
I think the one of Schwarz will definitely also stick in my head. We'll probably think about it a couple of times when I drive back, because I still have a 2-hour drive. So it's better to think about the customer story. But I was just indeed impressed by the numbers as well, like the number of events, the number of brokers, the use cases behind it, the pace in which they go live. I think it's all very impressive.
Also the fact, I'm not sure if you can mention it, Emil, but that they have a broker per shop. That they put brokers locally there.
I don't think that's a secret, but that's actually what they do, because it also guarantees that the applications, the systems in the shop can keep on communicating even when data connectivity to the outside world is for whatever reason not there for a moment. The broker also can act as a buffer or cache to keep the data that cannot go out on the broker. So a POS can still keep publishing its data to this local broker, but also the other way around. If price updates are pushed to the broker, then it's also possible for the applications in the shop to get that data at the pace they can consume it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you push stuff from the stores, that if the moment you put it in there, someone else at the other side of the world can subscribe to it and have that data in milliseconds.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what you mentioned is also very valid. We saw retailers before. We have them in the Netherlands as well, that are opening a shop every day. And usually what you see is that the infrastructure in those shops is not, perfect yet. They're still working on it, right? So they need to have a possibility to continue their operations, their business continuity, especially if there's an outage of the internet, for instance, or an outage of the electricity or whatever. But the funny thing is that if you talk about brokers inside the shops, it sounds like there's a data center in those shops as well.
Well, every shop does have a piece of infrastructure. Of course, it's as lean as possible. So usually that means there's no... Well, the maintenance is relatively simple. Everything that's broken or doesn't work for whatever reason is just replaced and reconfigured on the spot. That's usually a model that those companies follow. Because there's not there's not IT employees in every shop, and maybe even you can rephrase that. Schwarz positions themselves, Schwarz Digits, as an IT company. So, and they serve the retailers, but they have also other internal customers or even external customers now, because they do not only work for little, but also for sell their services in the market. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also interesting, because that means that as a retailer, apparently you don't need IT employees in your shop, at least, and maybe not even in your company. That's another way to look at it.
So how does it work then, Emil? Are you preparing those ready-made pizza boxes and just screw them into a server rack over there?
Yeah, they work with software, so they don't use the hardware appliances. But in fact, that's what's happening. They use an image and they pull it from a Docker image registry, probably an internal one, and just deploy it to the shop and configure it. And then you can do it in seconds, indeed, if you need to rebuild your environment.
Yeah, there's one of the things that I noticed from their story as well, that they have kind of a hands-off approach. That the IT folks, when he was on the stage, he mentioned that he doesn't even know which queues and which messages go over the line.
With the self-service portal.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's of course, I'm not sure if it's of course, but it's a general pattern that we see often. The data publishing applications are usually also the people who work with those applications, the ones who are responsible for the data, or you can maybe even call it data ownership, depending on how you define it in a company. But that means that also the integration team or the IT team that is facilitating transport of the data doesn't have a saying about the data, doesn't need to know what the data is about. They only need to know where it should go. So there's agreements, for example, again on the topic taxonomy, which is actually a reflection of how business processes are built up and in different parameters and properties. But there's no reason and also no technical necessity to know what's actually flowing over your system. As long, of course, if you have those guardrails and you have some naming conventions, and that's it. But the possibility to do this with self-service, with approval, so still keeping your data governance as it should, that's actually what makes it work at scale and keeps it flexible. Because you don't want whoever is operating the Solace or the Advanced Event Management platform to be the next bottleneck. You don't want them knocking on your door, I need a new data stream. Okay, do it yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the strengths of Solace Website Plus or Advanced Event Mesh, is really the flexibility that you can have on the topic taxonomy and also the scalability of the topic taxonomy with the wildcards.
Interesting what you can do with your technology. Yeah. Thanks for having us and recording some nice stories at the Solace Connect 2026. And hopefully we can see you next year again.
I think so.
Would be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Café Nederland.
In our small studio here at Solace Connect, we have now the mayor of Nijmegen, Hubert Bruls. And he just opened the whole event with a nice story about the oldest city of the Netherlands.
In recent decades, archaeological endeavors have proved that not only the Romans first started here, but there was also urban living since then, and that's really what matters. There are more places in the Netherlands even where settlements were prior to Nijmegen. But the story about being how long your city depends upon if there's still continuous living. And even after the Romans left, there is proof came up that it was in Nijmegen the case. And since then the discussion has silenced in favor of Nijmegen.
Okay, which is really nice, and I like your story. It's an old story, 2,000 years ago, but it's so they spotted this city. Yeah. But if you look at the city right now, innovation is really important to you and also important to Nijmegen. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you compare it to the 2,000 years ago, you can't make a comparison. So if you compare it in recent years, Nijmegen has developed into a trade city throughout the ages, and obviously in the last century, The other things were getting more important if you want to be an economic relevant factor. Trade is very important. We can see it in the geopolitical turmoil these days, what it means if trade isn't possible. But you can't depend an economy nowadays on trade. So manufacturing in the modern sense, high-tech, health, which are the main sectors in this city, are very important, not only now, but also in the future. But the second thing is developments. Economists have explained me throughout my career. The developments are getting even more quicker. 50 years ago, you could say you made an innovative development and you could apply it, and then for 10 years it was okay. Well, nowadays you can be happy if it's okay for 1.5 a year or so on. And even in sectors like semiconductors, which is very important for Nijmegen, you see that there's a speeding up of innovation challenges. So we have to go with it, if you like it or not. If you want to maintain our prosperity, if we want to be attractive for young people in a time when the labor market is very tight, you have to go with it in innovation, not only in the technological scenes, but also in the social sphere. So innovation is key in everything we do.
Yeah, that's absolutely been visible with NXP coming to Nijmegen as well, right?
Yeah, it's in hindsight you could say that's one of the biggest steps we have seen in the city in the 20th century. In the 50s, the city was after the war, it was destroyed. Tens of thousands of people had left the city or were killed in the war events. We had to redevelop, my predecessor had to redevelop the city, so it was a very key element of the 53. Philips finally was convinced to come to the city. My predecessor, Mayor Hustings, had tried several times. It wasn't easy because Nijmegen had no tradition in what was Philips about in transistor radios, which was the theme at the time. And if you look in hindsight, that has been a very decisive step, because everything what's happening now in the semiconductors cluster, it's not only NXP, which obviously came after Philips, but it's the majority of the gross investments and the workforce is not even working anymore at NXP, but in other firms. Sometimes very small, but sometimes also firms with quite some staff, like Nexperia is one example. So it's been a very decisive step. What happened in '53, and I guess the people of the time, most of them don't live anymore. Obviously, they can be very proud where they can still see what's Nijmegen developed, where it came from and what it's developed to.
I guess that was one of the most defining moments in the history of Nijmegen.
And sometimes the defining moment you can only see the definement afterwards, many years afterwards. It's and so that is what's really important if you're making decision in companies or in government. Have you the strategic side to make a decision of which it's impossible to say what it brings you in 20 or 30 years, but where you got the intuition and the knowledge and the experience, well, that could be a very decisive moment, and that is something to keep in mind. And it means also a second thing, you can better do one thing good than 10 things only a little.
True.
That's so if you have something which you think this is a really good innovation, go for it. Even if it takes you years, that's better than to think, well, we got here 10 horses, let them run all into the beautiful green pastures. In the end, you will see that all the horses have been sold or went otherwise, and you end up having nothing. Or people are saying, well, perhaps a nice city, but I don't know what they are doing there.
So focus is important.
Focus is really important, and especially in these times where we were talking about where the developments are going so rapidly, focus is even more important, because otherwise you think, well, today it's green, tomorrow it's red, and then blue. Well, you end up never nothing. If you want to get everything, you get nothing.
And what about the future? Is there any of these type of defining moments lying ahead of us in terms of AI or maybe also semiconductors?
Yeah, AI is a good theme. Our university is very keen on the topic AI, but the semiconductor cluster obviously is changing, and the geopolitical terms I guess one of the most defining decisions which, first of all, NXP and other firms have to make, they're the company holders. I'm just a simple mayor. But we're supporting it. One of the most defining decisions to make is, will we keep a manufacturing chips producer, which is NXP now, here in the city?
You mentioned China.
Yeah, it's the only firm of the kind in the whole of the Benelux. They're obviously Eindhoven is a very important hub with which we cooperate very strongly. Enschede, Delft, and Leuven in Belgium. You can name them all, but we are the only manufacturing producer of chips is here in Nijmegen. So it's a very important decision. And up to for example, 5 years, the feeling was, well, perhaps NXP will leave the city with the manufacturing side, because you can produce easier or cheaper in China or even in Germany, where they're building a large companies. But now you can feel the tide is turning, because not only we at the local level, we are very proud and keen on NXP and all the semiconductor firms, but our national government, the Nexperia case shows how a Dutch minister got in quite a tension with, well, a small country at the other side of the globe, China, and that means something, that the Netherlands is saying, well, we want to keep firms like these in the Netherlands. That's a very big strategic decision which the newly formed government in the Netherlands has to take up, and we happily support it. And it's no secret that as a local government we strongly support the side of keep a factory like this in the Netherlands, because to put up a new factory like that, it costs you billions. It's quite impossible. Experts have explained to me. So investing in something you have obviously costs a lot of money, a lot of effort, and you don't get a guarantee. But it's easier than to stop something now and then in 5 years' time say, well, we got a good idea. We develop a new chips company. Starting
from scratch is really difficult.
Then everybody has moved to Dresden or Hamburg or wherever it will start up. So we have to do it. We can't do it alone. We need support of the national government, but also we have taken up the cooperation with Eindhoven, Delft, and Twente to make a more national semiconductor cluster, which is obviously for a relative small country like the Netherlands the best. Tactics. Netherlands in itself is just like North Rhine-Westphalia, which is only a state in Germany. So you have to take in mind, we Dutch people, we have to cooperate more strongly than only in our city or in our regions.
Traditionally, I get the chance to ask a difficult question in this podcast, right?
Okay. Let's get it on. Who will football champion in the Netherlands?
Well, I could ask that kind of questions as well. I probably you have an opinion about that as well, but more about the topic on of Nijmegen. Yeah. So if there's sounds like you're well versed, and I've learned a lot in the last 5 to 10 minutes from you. Yeah. There's one question, like if there's a tech company coming along, what would you, in one sentence, what would you say to this tech company to settle in Nijmegen, to set up shop here?
Well, welcome. I would say you're welcome. That's a warm welcome. That's the first thing we'd say. We were very appreciative to new firms or firms already here who want to invest. And then I would open up the talk. Well, you have to take in mind, what do you really want? Because the spatial challenge is enormous in this city. The economy, after a small dip in the Corona episode, but it's doing very well, and the city itself is not expanding. So I would ask them, what do you really want? Do you need a lot of space, or is it more about you need a little building from where on you can cooperate, or is it the mobility? Is that, or do you need housing for your people? And then from there on, I guess we would take it up in the regional network, because that's I was talking about cooperation. Even for a city like ours with more than 190,000 inhabitants, which for the Dutch context is a large city. city, but in the European, the global space, obviously that means not that much. So it's always about cooperation with other municipalities surrounding, where, for example, there is much more space or beautiful residential circumstance, and we can offer the knowledge about the sector in tech, because that's a specialty in this region for Nijmegen. But obviously, I would say welcome with a large W.
Yeah, so it looks like you're really partnering with companies, partnering with other cities. So partnership, connecting is really important for you.
And we have learned, we have made our mistakes, but we've also learned, and you have to do it. I was vice mayor alderman at the beginning of the millennium, and I remember very well that at the enterprise venue where NXP and the other companies are now, it was kind of, well, in Dutch you would say a ratje toe, a miscellaneous complex of old firms, even buildings which were where nothing happened at all. And we have made the then local government made the clear-cut choice. We want to make here a kind of techno entrepreneurial area. That were the words of the time, and nowadays we use more like science parks, but
I heard Health Valley.
Health Valley.
Yeah.
These are all terms from later on, but we already had something. Though it wasn't worked out in detail, but we had a vision of if we want to do something, we have to give room to firms, and you have to give room to firms who are acquainted to each other. So technological firms, get them together because they can learn from each other, they can exchange innovations or people, inspiring each other. So it has to be a beautiful area, and we're in the middle of that, doing that. I'm very proud that 25 years after that intuitive sense of then has developed into a plan where there's not only space for firms but even for residential living near.
Yeah, so they should be getting together.
Yeah,
but as long as it's in Nijmegen.
Or in the region. We have to be. Look, any foreigner coming from Germany or the Americas or wherever is astonished about what we call a region. What's really a region? In Germany, everybody finds it quite normal. You have to drive an hour or in the car or by train to get to your work. In the Netherlands, well, that's something. Yeah, you're going to Utrecht, to Eindhoven. Wow. You have to drive 50 kilometers. Wow, that's something. Well, if the region is the region of Nijmegen is about 20 kilometers in parameter. It's fine if a firm is getting outside Nijmegen, because in the end everything comes together with Nijmegen as the centrum city here. It isn't really that important where the firm actually goes, as long as it comes here in the region. That's the main thing.
With Nijmegen as the center of the university.
Nijmegen is the center.
Innovation hub.
Nijmegen is the largest city and has the tradition of the high-tech area. So everybody will come together to Novio Tech Park, so it's called nowadays. But if your firm is getting 3 kilometers furthermore, well, that's no distance. You can bike it.
Yeah, exactly.
I see Emil smiling all the time. I think he's a residential of Nijmegen.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a residential. I know even where he lives.
Oops. Sounds like a threat.
Yeah, no. But we lived nearby in the recent past. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your opinion and good luck with all the innovation hubs that's gathering around Nijmegen.
Yeah, thank you.
Hanecafé Nederland.
Yeah, Jan, next at the table we have Jamil Ahmed, Vice President Solution Engineering at Solace.
A huge honor.
A huge honor, yeah. And Jamil, you just had a nice presentation on agent mesh.
That's right.
I think that's a new term, at least to me. So maybe you can explain to our listeners or viewers what is an agent mesh.
Sure. So this is our newest product from Solace, and it's really about how enterprises can introduce an AI component to their business, but do so in a scalable, governable, observable manner. It's an open source framework, so everybody's able to just go and try it for themselves. And it is in the ethos of what we've been doing at Solace already to date, which is we want to remove some of the complexity from organizations so they don't have to worry about it. They can focus on business logic. They can focus on what makes their business tick. and what is often described as, the plumbing layer, the connectivity, the integration. That's really what we want to do on behalf of these enterprises.
What you already do for a long time, integration?
Exactly. So we've been doing it for a long time, and Agent Mesh is really a nice extension to say, okay, so the addition of AI is another complexity in an already complex landscape. And quite often the case, the same enterprises also need to deal with the integration challenge first.
Yeah.
And once you've laid the foundation, the AI part adds on top of that quite easily, quite nicely. So our engagements to date have been a bit of both. Sometimes it's a case of, we need to do something with AI. We like your Solace Agent Mesh story. Mm-hmm. And then as part of those conversations, you realize, okay, actually, that AI brain needs to talk to a nervous system of existing sensor systems of records, third-party or vendor solutions, and we haven't got that foundation yet.
Yeah. But you showed a picture with of course, Solace in the middle as an integration part, but then on the left side you had all kind of systems of records, and I don't think SB likes us saying that we are just a system of records, but let's skip that part, that's political. But on the left side you have SB, Salesforce, Workday, all kinds of transaction systems, and on the right side you have the AI, the agents, all the vendors over there. Who's now in charge? What is it? The data? Is it the system of records? Is it the AI agent? Who's controlling all these things are moving around?
Well, there's two ways of approaching that question. So control as in terms of governance and observability, there's that aspect of any technology stack. You need to have that accounted for. But bigger picture, stepping back, who's in control of that business flow, that transaction, that the reason for being, is in the event-driven architecture way, the owner of the event. So the system of record, whether we call it system of record or not, or the third-party integration, or the SaaS that you're consuming, if the data itself is originating out of that left-hand side piece, then that's the owner of that particular set of events. And everybody else is now just reacting to that. So that gives you quite a nice, clear ownership model. If you're the producer, you're responsible for what it looks like, how often you're sending it, what your versioning system is. So all of that is accounted for in an event-driven architecture semantic. And hopefully that answers the question.
Could you think of an example of how this would work? For instance, if you have the intersection between Solace and ERP and Agentic, a typical business case, what would it look like?
Typical business case, so first of all, there isn't a unidirectional flow in that description that you just said, right? So your ERP could be emitting something that is responded to by your AI agent, but then have something go back in reverse. So maybe there's some insight being created around crunching transaction history, order history, that then goes back in and enables something to happen in the ERP.
You mentioned a high-value support case, for instance.
Yes. So in that simple scenario, we've got, so we'll just say generically a system of record of support cases. That's the golden source. But you can enrich that, you can enhance how that system of record operates with the help of AI. And with the kind of augmenting of data with AI could be, there's additional context that can be added to that support ticket, a simple support ticket, that is not in that singular system. There's an inevitability of I need to speak to 5 other areas or be aware of 5 other things to then effectively inform that first system where the support ticket lives. And that's really now an integration challenge that would have existed regardless of AI. But all that AI has done now is make it easier to implement what would have been a lofty goal, an aspirational need from the business, but IT it was just unfeasible to do so.
Yeah.
But AI, because of its greatest power, the natural language aspect of it, you can describe, you can query in a way that you don't need to think in terms of API or SQL statements or knowing where something is. And that's really the game changer here.
Yeah. So it's basically reacting to events that might happen in SAP and then respond to it in a smart fashion, AI-driven. But of course, the core of the whole story is that you should bring that event out first.
Correct. Yeah. So the philosophy of liberate those systems first, stream and filter across an event mesh, but we don't need to describe it as an event mesh, but something in the middle to do some heavy lifting around streaming and filtering. And then those need to be reacted to. And it could go the other direction as well, which is not clear in the diagram that I had up there, but really those who are reacting could then likewise be those who are emitting. And that's quite a powerful capability. If you think about it in that way, it's simple to describe, but what it unlocks in terms of business value is huge.
It's becoming an autonomous enterprise in a way. I mean, if you have your ERP system to respond together with Solace, together with your AI, to basically respond whatever is happening in your organization, then you will be able to do these type of things autonomously rather than having all kinds of people in the loop.
Exactly.
If companies want to start doing these type of things, what would you recommend to do to get started?
Yeah, but also, so you just explained it. It's so easy. It's natural language. So everybody's doing AI or something with agents, but now in production, how
to get started? How do you do it?
Yeah,
in production. Well, speaking as a user, having been in these large complex organizations, the hurdles to production is always having a good answer to the question, what if it goes wrong?
Okay.
Right. So if it goes wrong in the sense that it stops running, how do we recover it? How do we bring it back up? But with AI, the additional complexity of what if it goes wrong and starts doing the wrong thing, creating the wrong insights, or
hallucinating.
Yes, exactly. To use the AI jargon of the space.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's just doing the wrong thing, right? And it's no different than software that was written and it has a bug in it and it starts doing the wrong thing. So those are still valid concerns, just the same as before. What our answer would be, you shouldn't address this space as it's a completely new. There are learnings from the past. There are approaches from the past that should be applied here. And that's probably the role that we're playing in the market right now as a simple reminder. Just because you're approaching this AI space or looking to introduce it into your organization, don't treat it in isolation. Don't treat it as a new thing that has no lessons to be learned from before. Yeah. And that's our simple pitch, really, of even to introduce AI, don't forget that it's still an integration challenge first.
Don't make a new silo. It's all about integration.
Exactly. And
built-in silos you have.
Depending on the use cases that we end up enabling, treating it as a silo quickly runs out of road. You just can't be effective. You can't even do a POC if you treat it in that silo. So the agent mesh from Solace really is about appreciating that. Even to do a POC, it needs to be connected to your enterprise. It needs to connect to an existing nervous system for it to be a smart brain. And you either already have that, and it's a very small delta now for those organizations to introduce AI, or it becomes the trigger point to realize, let's go and add the foundations that we need, and then do the AI when we're ready for it.
To many companies, this might sound very abstract. Is Solace actively helping customers to make it less abstract and more tangible in terms of use cases?
Definitely, and the talk that we'll see later on in this event from JDE is that proof point of taking something that's quite abstract and making it real. And as I was saying in my talk, the AI value add often is attacking the mundane, attacking the boring. And if you can do that, it has that effect of, just a 1% improvement compounds. And that's really the best way, from my point of view, to approach this AI introduction into enterprises. It is not going to be a step change for a business to do something that it could not do before, and now it's got this new magical ability. The better way of approaching is we already do something for the market or the customers that we are in existence for. How can we do it better? How can we be more productive when we're doing it? How do we improve efficiencies? How do we do so with less cost? Like all the usual business drivers, like increasing wallet share, increasing market share, that is still the lens to apply for when you're embarking on this AI journey. What's our reason for being as a business? How do we do that better? And AI is one answer to it. Not AI is the answer.
That's very nice saying. AI is one of the answers.
I like that mantra. It's going to be my personal mantra as well.
Okay, cool. We make a shirt out of it.
That's a t-shirt. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Should I got in there with the trademark quickly?
Too late.
Yeah, we already recorded it now.
So I'll let you have this one.
Yeah. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hanecafe Nederland.
So Jan, and the end of the day, people are having drinks. Maybe we can join them for drinks as well. It was an inspiring day about stories about millions and billions of messages going through.
Billions and billions.
It was
world domination.
And, actually, terabytes of data per day that's going to be sent through.
My head is overflowing with all the inspiration that I got today.
Yeah, and but it's because we've been in now for 2 years, and of course, we always said in the past, modern architecture is an event-driven architecture, but also at this event-driven architecture event from Solace, it's about AI. It's about the agent mesh, and it's also the first time that we have a major in our podcast.
Well, they always say it's EDA, right? So I think the A of EDA is actually starting to become AI. So event-driven AI. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, but So what is really necessary for AI? That is data.
SAP Joule.
Sorry. But this was an SAP podcast. No, but it's data.
Yeah,
and the availability of data real time makes the success of any of your agents. And agents are not the solution for everything. But if you want to do something really valuable with AI or agents, then you need to have the right data at the right time.
Yeah, the data, the processes, so the terms and conditions. So you need to ground your agent on your business context.
Yeah,
true. And that includes your data.
Yeah. So they can call you for advanced event mesh?
Always.
Okay.
It remains a very interesting and a very exciting topic.
Yeah, it is. And okay. Thanks to dear Hanecafe visitor for joining in, for listening, or maybe even viewing our podcast today. And see you next time.
Yeah, let's cool down a little bit.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hanecafe Nederland. Jan and Tom, loved having you here. Drop us a line if you have any thoughts or want to be on the show. We'll be back soon with more SAP goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.
Daar hebben we wel zin in. Ja.
Cheers.
Doei.